Are you truly living life or merely surviving? Whether you want more time, more love, more money, or whether you want it all, we want to help you get there. The best part? Everything you want lies on the other side of fear and self-doubt. It's time to take the leap with your host, Tiffany Toombs.
Hello and welcome back for episode number 7 of Take the Leap. And I'm so excited today because we are talking about the hero's journey. And this is one of my favorite concepts to share with my clients and people who come through my workshops. And I find that it's often one of the most life-changing and provides the most aha moments for people when they learn it. You are the hero of your story. And as soon as you start to realize that and embrace that concept of being your own hero, your life will start to change in ways that you never would have expected. And so what the hero's journey teaches us is that there are definite steps that we will go through on any journey of growth. Knowing the hero's journey has changed my life because it has given me the inspiration and the motivation to push through tougher times because I know what the next phase is. And during the easier times, it has allowed me to plan for the future to minimize the challenges or the down cycles in the economy or in a business or even in my own emotional and energetic state. It's allowed me to plan for those in advance so that I don't feel the highs and lows to such extremes as I did in the past. So today we're going to be looking at Joseph Campbell's Monomyth, also known as the hero's journey. Now, any book or movie that has become a blockbuster hit, whether it is Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, I'm assuming Game of Thrones, even though I've never seen the show, Harry Potter, even 50 Shades of Grey have a storyline that follows the hero's journey. And the reason those movies and books become blockbusters is because the unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between you and me. And it also doesn't know the difference between fiction and reality. And so when we're watching these movies, we see the hero overcoming whatever challenges he or she is faced with, and our unconscious mind goes, well, if they can, I can too. And so these movies empower us, and that's why they typically blow up in pop culture, is because it provides that inspiration and that motivation for people. The hero's journey and this concept of recognizing that the unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between you and me. And so if I see somebody else do something, my unconscious mind believes that I can do it, was the whole purpose behind me creating this podcast, Take the Leap, in the way that I did. I interview people who have taken the leap and been successful in some area of their life because even though you can't see the person, you listening to this podcast and you hearing other people and the things that they have overcome in their journey and finding success allows your unconscious mind to say, I can do it too because they did it. Through this podcast, I'm going to reference the movie The Matrix, the original one, the first one in the series. If you haven't watched the movie, I would encourage you to listen to this podcast in full and then go and watch the movie as soon as you possibly can. You will see the movie completely differently to anybody else who watched it for the first time. If you have seen the movie, go back and watch it again as well as soon as you can, because you will see it from a different perspective and you'll see how it relates to your life and to your journey of growth. The hero's journey can be applied to any area of growth and life, whether that is health, relationships, business or career, finances, just life in general, self-love. The hero's journey can be applied to all of those things. So let's kick it off. The very first step that we go on when we encounter any journey of change is we get a call to action. Now, in the movie The Matrix, Neo, played by Keanu Reeves, gets 2 calls. The very first call comes from the payphone, and he's told to follow the white rabbit. The second call is when he is delivered a cell phone to his desk at work in a package, and Morpheus is on the other end of the line and tells him that Agent Smith is coming to capture him and directs him how to get out of the building. The call to action in your life may be showing up in a number of different ways. It may be that gut feeling that something's not right in your relationship. I definitely had that call to action in many of my failed relationships, that something wasn't right. I had one point in one of my relationships where a woman reached out to me randomly on Facebook and said to me, "Your boyfriend's been asking me on dates." That was a call to action for me. Now, what typically the second step of the hero's journey is that we refuse the call. And this happens in The Matrix. Neo follows Morpheus's directions until Morpheus directs him to climb out the window 30 or 40 stories up in a high-rise building, shimmy along a very tiny ledge, and duck into the next window. And Neo looks out the window, sees how high up he is, and he says, "Hell no!" And he climbs back in and ultimately gets captured. The same thing happened for me after I got this message from this woman. Even though my gut told me that there was some truth to what she was saying, I found reasons to pick holes in what she was saying. I found out that she had a reputation for attempting to break up couples, and so I completely discarded everything she said as well as my gut feeling with it. So we can refuse the call to action. After we refuse the call, we meet someone, or serendipity happens in some way that we come across some form of information or tools that allow us to know that this is the journey we need to go on. Typically, the reason that we refuse the call is due to fear or self-doubt. We are afraid to take that job opportunity. We're afraid to leave the job that is no longer fulfilling us. For me, I refused the call because I wasn't ready to be single again yet. I hadn't had enough pain to recognize that that wasn't a good relationship for me. And so this mentor or these tools and resources that come into our life through serendipity or happenstance, you might even look at it as coincidence, gives us what we need to make the decision to go on that journey. For me, it was finding messages between my boyfriend and this other woman and multiple other women that allowed me to see that he really was cheating on me. And for me, cheating is a hard boundary. After you cheat on me, there's no coming back from that. And so that gave me exactly what I needed to know that I had to end that relationship. In the movie The Matrix, Neo has been captured by Agent Smith. He's sitting tied to a chair, and Morpheus comes in and rescues him. So Morpheus becomes the mentor. Now, in a lot of people's lives, I am the role of the mentor, or my workshops, my book, this podcast become the tool that gives them the information that they need to make the decision to go on that journey. You may hear one of the podcast interviews with one of the experts and successful people that I bring in and hear a story that is similar to yours and recognize that you don't want to wait until you get to the level of pain that they had. You don't want to be broke again. And so that provides you with the inspiration that you need to go on this journey. And so once you have that mentor or those resources and knowledge, then you cross the first threshold and decide to take this journey. From there, we move into this period of grace. And this is where, in the Matrix, Neo is hooked up to all the electrodes in the pod and he's resting. He's regaining his strength. For me, after I left that relationship, I felt great. I had a ton of people who were interested in me. I had a whole bunch of people who wanted to spend time with me. I was making friends really easily. I felt really, really good. In other hero's journeys that I've been on, because we go through multiple hero's journeys in our lifetime, was I started a business and we were making $10,000 cash a month on top of our $5,000 wage. And this money was just rolling in and life was good. This is the period of grace. It is designed to allow us to rest from the challenge that we have just overcome. Even deciding to go on this journey is something that not everyone makes it to. Some people stay in that place of denial and refusing the call for their entire lifetime, in some cases. And so the universe gives us this period of grace so that we can recharge, we can build our system back up again to have the energy and the strength to face what's coming next, which is the trials and the tribulations. I want to be clear, any coach, any coaching program, any guru, anything out there that tells you do this program, pay this money, take this course, and promises that you will never have another challenge again in your life is a liar. And you should turn around and run in the opposite direction. Because the fact of the matter is, trials and tribulations are a part of our journey. In fact, I would argue that they are the most important part of our journey because it's the trials and the tribulations that teach us the lessons that we needed. Looking back on the hero's journeys I've gone through in life, if I hadn't had those negative relationships, I wouldn't be able to show up and communicate and set boundaries and ask for what I need and define clearly my expectations around how I'm treated without having had those past experiences. It's the same in business. If I hadn't lost $1.8 million, if my business hadn't lost $1.8 million 5 years ago, then I wouldn't have the understanding of how to grind and hustle and get out of that hole to build something back up again. And so the trials and the tribulations are the most important part. And it's one of two places in the hero's journey where people are most likely to give in. I see it happening all the time where, especially coming after the period of grace, things will get tough and people will take that and interpret it as a sign from the universe that they're not meant to be doing this. They're on the wrong path. Even though they're following their heart and they're following their gut instincts, they create logically this reason to quit because it's difficult. The thing is, if it was meant to be easy, everyone would be doing it and you wouldn't appreciate the win at the end. If you never lost anything, you wouldn't appreciate how good it felt to have success. If you never made a mistake, you would never learn. We learn to walk by falling over, not by standing up and walking perfectly the first time. And so the trials and tribulations are teaching us how to walk metaphorically in whatever area of life it is that we're growing in. So you need to embrace the trials and tribulations and know that within the trials and tribulations, that just means that something else is coming after. Know that when you start a venture and you're in that period of grace and things are easy and you're making money, that trials and tribulations are going to come. The very first time I went through the hero's journey in my business and was making all that cash, I didn't know the trials and tribulations were going to come. So I was foolish with the money. I spent it on, I don't even know what I spent it on, to be honest, but I do know when the trials and tribulations hit, and overnight, the economy changed and the business lost $1.8 million pretty much overnight. I didn't have anything to fall back on. I didn't have anything in savings. And so that made the down point in our business that much harder for me because I had no idea how I was going to eat next month. And so in my business now, when I'm going through those high periods, I recognize that with every cycle of growth, I'm going to have trials and tribulations. And I can have the financial means ready when that happens. I can make smarter investments with my money to make sure that I'm always protected. So if you're going through trials and tribulations, know that there is an end point. While we're going through the trials and tribulations, we will have somebody, and maybe you already have this person and you need to learn how to lean on them and to ask them for help. We have somebody come into our life who is unconditional love. And oftentimes as a coach, this is the other role that I play for my clients and people who come through my programs, is I believe in them until they believe in themselves. And that's ultimately the role of the coach. So in the Matrix, the trials and tribulations for Neo are all the fights that they get into randomly, all the battles that they have escaping from Agent Smith. And Neo in the Matrix has two unconditional loves. He has the motherly unconditional love from the Oracle, and he has the intimate partnership love from Trinity. And both of those women believe in him, believe that he's the one when he fails to believe that himself. Once we find that unconditional love, however it comes in, and sometimes you have to find that unconditional love in yourself, by the way. Once we find that unconditional love, we go through a period of temptation. Temptation is the second most common spot in the hero's journey where people will give in. If we decide to give in to temptation and go back to what we've always known, then we don't continue on in the hero's journey. The hero's journey stops there for us until we get another call to action. If we do, however, resist the temptation and we continue on the journey and the path that we're on, we go through a period of death and rebirth. Who we are energetically, spiritually, even on a physiological cellular level, dies in order to reborn as who we're meant to be. And our cells actually do change. The study of epigenetics tells us that our genes can be turned on and off. Certain traits in our genes can be turned on and off depending on our environment. And so if you go through a process of letting go of your emotional baggage, you will turn off genes that make you overly angry or rageful or depressing or anxious. You can turn that aspect of your genes off. My clients have seen it. I've personally experienced it. As you go through this process of letting go of your baggage and then you decide not to give in to temptation, you decide not to go back, your life changes in ways that you never could have expected. Mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, physically, you change. You become a different person. And the reason that so many people give in to temptation is because the known devil is less scary than the unknown. We know that we can go back to our old life and keep living the way that we have for months, maybe even years, decades. Could be our entire life that we've been living with those belief systems of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I have to be perfect, whatever it is that you're holding on to. If we go back to that, we know how to play that game. We've done it before. I've seen it happen with friends who will leave an abusive partner and then get to that point of temptation and they'll go back. And if I'm honest, I considered taking that ex back after he had cheated on me with multiple women. I said to him, we'll just go to counseling, you admit to what you've done, and we'll both be better and show up in this relationship. I almost gave in to temptation, except luckily for me, he couldn't tell the truth. He couldn't bring himself to admit to what he had done, and he continued to lie about it, so I couldn't go back. I considered going back, though, because I knew that if I just did a little bit more, maybe if I nagged him a little bit less, that he wouldn't continue to cheat on me. And so we look at going back to those relationships. You go back to that corporate job because, yeah, you hate the 9 to 5. You know how to get past your boss who is overly demanding. You know that if you just stay quiet in the relationship that you won't get abused. You know that if you just eat a little bit less sugar, you drink a little bit less, then maybe you won't gain as much weight this time around. It's easy to go back to what we've always been. When we go through to the unknown, we have no idea what to expect. A client of mine, when I was telling him about the hero's journey, he shared this story with me about how in ancient times there was this thief caught stealing from the king. And so he was brought before the king, and the king said, you have two choices. You can face certain death, or you can go through that door back there and face whatever lies behind it. And the man quickly says, certain death. I want certain death. And as he's being drug away towards his certain death, he says to the king, I just have to know what was behind that door. And the king says, freedom. The unknown can be so scary that we go back to a life that makes us miserable. It's time to stop giving in to temptation. Neo faces 2 times of temptation in the movie The Matrix. Once when Morpheus offers him the red pill or the blue pill. Take one pill and you wake up in your bed the next day and you're none the wiser about the matrix that exists around you. Or take the other pill and this becomes your life. You continue moving forward and fighting the matrix that exists to free other people from it. The second time that he's tempted is when the slimy, sleazy guy comes up to him and wants to double-cross Morpheus and Trinity and everyone else and says, let's just turn them into Agent Smith and we can live like kings for the rest of our life. And he chooses not to give in to that temptation and he moves forward. And if you haven't seen The Matrix, I'm warning you, there is a spoiler alert. When Neo faces Agent Smith, he dies. He dies to be reborn as the One, which is just a reconfiguration of the letters in Neo. So as I said before, you will go through a period of death and rebirth. You may find yourself hanging out with new people, wanting to go to new places, not able to stand going to the same places anymore. There is a part of growth that people don't talk about, and that is grieving people who are not willing to come on the journey with you. So as you go through this period of death and rebirth, things that you put up with in the past, you no longer will. And so that's part of your rebirth as well. What I want you to know is that what waits for you on the other side of temptation, what waits for you on the other side of the death and rebirth is true success. You have your ultimate win. Whatever that thing that you've been battling is, you face it and you win. Neo, now reborn as the One, fights Agent Smith again, and this is where you see him do the crazy backbendy stuff to dodge the bullets. And he defeats Agent Smith. So there is a win waiting for you on the other side. Certain success is waiting for you on the other side of temptation. You just have to go through that death and rebirth to get there. Because the person you are right now in this second is not the person who needs to win. The person who can win. You need to be integrated with the resources. You need to let go of the baggage in order to have that win. After we have that win, we then have a long flight home where we go back into our old community as our new self. When I returned from Australia to Canada, I was a completely different person. I'd gotten rid of all my anger issues. I wasn't afraid of being different anymore. I was okay to stand in front of hundreds or thousands of people and talk on stage, whereas before I left, that would have scared the crap out of me. So I came back as a different person and went back into my small hometown where everyone knew me as this old person, and I had to become a master of two worlds, which is where you learn how to be the new you in an old environment that expects you to be that old person. And once you navigate those waters and you figure out that balance, you can then mentor other people. So where are you in your hero's journey? Have you gotten the call yet? Maybe it's the call from a loved one saying somebody's sick, or from the doctor saying that your cholesterol is too high, or heaven forbid you have an illness. Have you gotten that gut feeling that tells you you need to do something else? Can you feel your soul dying every day you go to that 9 to 5 that you hate? That's your call to action. Have you been refusing it? How long have you been refusing it for? Have you met someone, me, that can be that mentor for you, that can provide the knowledge, the resources, and the tools that you need to decide to go on this journey? Or will you keep giving in and refusing the call? Maybe you're in the period of grace where you're in the honeymoon phase of a new relationship. The period of grace is the rebound relationship. That's what a rebound relationship is it's that period of grace for you to get your confidence back. We just tend to misread the purpose of a rebound relationship because we want it to mean more. We want it to last for longer because we're used to being part of that couple. Maybe in your business, you're making a ton of money. You have a ton of clients coming in. You're making enough to survive. Have you hit the trials and tribulations yet? And if you are, stick with it. Know what's coming on the other side. Have you found that person to give you unconditional love? If you haven't, feel free to email me, Tiffany@bluelotusmind.com. And I will be the person who believes in you until you believe in yourself. Are you facing temptation? Do you want to go back to that old relationship, back to that old job, back to your old health habits? Do you want to reach for that bucket of ice cream? Are you tempted to go back? And I would encourage you, if you are, to stay the course. Go through the death and the rebirth. Reach out to me. I will be there with you during that process to help get you through. Because I know what's waiting for you on the other side is everything you've ever imagined. You just have to stick with it. So it's time now for you to become the hero of your own journey. No more playing small. It's time for you to go out there and get all the things that you deserve and that you want. And to recognize that understanding the hero's journey gives you tools that most people don't have. You know that when you're in the trials and tribulations, you can start preparing for the temptation. The temptation is most likely to show up when you're the most tired from all the other challenges that you've been facing. That's when that easy money is going to be offered to you. That's when, after the rebound relationship and you're feeling crappy about yourself, that your ex is going to pop up and text you. Recognize where you are in the hero's journey so that you can start preparing yourself for better success, to be stronger. You can get through the trials and tribulations faster by asking yourself, what do I need to learn? How do I overcome this? Instead of getting stuck in the loop that so many people do of why me? Why is this happening to me? Ask yourself, what and how do I get out of this? What do I need to know? And start taking action towards being the best hero of your life that you possibly can. If you have any questions at all about the hero's journey, or about where you think you may be in your hero's journey, please feel free to reach out to me, Tiffany at bluelotusmind.com. And as always, if you need additional support, if you need that unconditional love, head to removemylimits.com. You can have access to me as your coach weekly for only $7 a month. That's the most amount of value I can possibly provide for $7 a month. And the value that you're going to get is well above what you're paying. So head over to removemylimits.com. Have an amazing week. Make sure that you take action and start moving through your own hero's journey this week. And I will talk to you all again right here next week. Bye-bye.